In the previous episode, I was working on the drop and the waterfalls and was focusing on the color gradient. In this month's society meeting, we had a discussion about the show plants, judging of plants, the criteria, what sort of plants to bring, and I took lots of notes, so let's go look at them. For context, I'm talking about the annual spring competition. It is held every October in Mount Waverly here in Melbourne. So as I mentioned, last Tuesday's meeting was about the presentation and judging of cactus and succulents for the annual spring show. And of course, I took lots of notes. Let's go through them one by one. So the first part was discussing why we even have a show in the first place. And there are several points here. The first one would be to produce a display for the general public that will enable them to fully appreciate the diversity and beauty of cacti and succulents. In other words, to show off, just to stroke our ego. And the second is to provide the general public with access to members throughout the show who can answer questions or just to provide general commentary about the plants. I had the pleasure of speaking with Brett last year. He was giving a little talk about pachycoles, and it was pretty cool because I have absolutely no idea what pachycoles are. I just happened to be in the area and I was asking about which ones are the pachycoles, and yeah, he gave us a little talk around it. The third would be to provide an opportunity for members to see and compare their plants with those of others and to have independent judges comment on their plants. I might think that some of my plants look good while others might not look so good, but maybe the professionals have a different opinion, so it would be really interesting to see what they think. To provide plants and sundry items for sale to the members and the general public. So this refers to the sales aspect of the whole thing. So apart from the show floor, there's lots and lots of sellers and stalls around in the building. So it's actually what most of the people go there for. And I guess in my case, I only found out about the competition after just wandering to the other room. So yeah, I guess the sales do promote awareness for those who are not in the know. To raise money for the running of the society, self-explanatory. To share the beauty of cacti and succulents, of course. To educate club members and the general public of 1. Horticultural information, 2. Staging and presentation techniques, and 3. Taxonomic identification. So basically just another avenue for teaching, for learning, because we usually have our monthly talks which focuses on different types of plants or different aspects of plants. In this case, I guess this is a more intimate setting, one-on-one, depending on who you get to talk to in the show. Next would be to bring camaraderie and teamwork to the club, of course, since everyone's going there, and apart from the monthly meetings, this is another chance to catch up with others. To allow for creative and artistic presentations, there are some classes or some, I don't know what else to call them. Anyway, there are some divisions where, classes. I think classes is the correct word. There are some classes wherein you could provide some quirky displays or an arrangement, dish garden, whatever. I think that those are some of the categories, but basically it allows you to express or provide an artistic interpretation of how you think the plants should look like or how you think the plants would look best. So for you artists out there, this might be something for you, exposure. To generate revenue for club financial needs. Of course, to offer plants for sale to club members and the public. So this is, again, referring to the sales aspect of the show. And to promote a healthy and competitive atmosphere. So without competition, there's little incentive for people to improve with their plants, with their practices. So competition is always good. Now the next part here is about the show specimens, about the plants themselves. So there are some guidelines that we have to follow. The first one would be they have to be well grown or true to type. So if you're going to come in with an Echeveria colorata and claim that it is an Echeveria chihuahuensis or a tipi, then don't expect to have favorable judging because you're bringing the wrong plant, the wrong lead labeled. So I guess that factors into the competition. Clean and free of pests, weeds, and litter. Of course, because you're going to bring your plant and expose it to the other plants once they stage it, once they put them together in classes. So you do not want to infect other plants. And besides, bringing infected plants is just poor form. You're not going to be judged favorably either. Properly named, scientific, and common. Of course, this is not your amateur or just any other show. This is an actual competition. So you have to be correct with your stuff. They have to be presented beautifully, of course, since this is a show after all. And these plants have to be something that you love and you are proud of. There's no point bringing plants just for the sake of, just trying to have something. You must actually be proud of your plants because it will definitely show in their beauty or in how you stage it. And lastly, plants that inspire and promote interest. So again, these plants have to be presentable, look beautiful. And if your plants inspire interest, this means that more and more people would start collecting these plants. And down the line, that could also mean that more varieties would be available. Sure, something might be rare now, but if more people cultivate it and more people make their own hybrids of it, then there would be more plants to go for everyone, Things will just get cheaper. This may or may not be good news to you, especially if you're the type who sells these plants, but just spread the love, man. The next part of the talk was about presentation, and this has mainly to do with the pot and the top dressing. So with regards to the pot, things to look out for would be the size, shape, and color. The pot shape should correspond with the plant needs. If you know that the plant is a shallow grower, then placing it in a really deep, tall pot would be out of place, Or on the other hand, if you know that a plant tends to grow really large, has an extensive root system, then putting it in a bonsai pot would be really weird and it won't really work because they would just fall over, So make sure the pot works with the plant. The pot shape should accent the plant form. If you have a weirdly shaped pot and place it with a plant that's, I don't know, it clashes. Because of course some pots by themselves, they scream for attention. So if you're going to take away from the plant and just have the pot screaming, then you're not doing yourself any favor. Tasteful pot to show value. So maybe some of you might be thinking of novelty, too much novelty or risque types of designs. You might want to tone it down. I'm not sure what the judges are actually looking for, but this is a guideline, so it has to be tasteful. Corresponding color and texture of pot to plant. The other part of the guidelines refer to the top dressing or the little pebbles that you place around the plant, and maybe even the staging rock. So the first thing here is the size and texture. So of course, if you're going with tiny plants, then your top dressing should be sized accordingly. It's going to be out of place if you place boulders inside the pot. The plants, the tiny plants that you're putting in would no longer stand out. They would be drowned by the pebbles. And this is not a pebble show. This is a plant show after all. And they could be either uniform or varying. It depends again on the design that you're after. The top dressing should be complementary or contrasting with pot or plant. Maybe you have a smooth pot, no texture, and then you decide to use some staging rock or top dressing that have lots and lots of texture, then it looks out of place, You have to look at the whole picture. And finally, the top dressing fills the pot and the plant is not plunged. What they are saying here is that if this is the plant, you don't want to plant it all the way this way and fill the top dressing up to here. You need to give it some breathing room, just set it properly basically. Having the plant drown in pebbles is going to work against you as far as judging is concerned. Another way to look at the whole thing about presentation is to think of it as an entire package. You'll have to consider the pot, the plant, and the top dressing that you're using. So let's say I'm going for a warm, no, this is a cool theme, wherein I have a blue pot with some sort of texture, and I'm going with a light blue plant like this one. Then I need to make sure that the top dressing do not clash. I'm not going to use some aquarium pebbles, the warm colored aquarium pebbles. I might go with something light like white pebbles, and they would work with this. So you'll have to look at it from the whole package. You do not just focus on one aspect of things. This is also another reason why they give us this information as early as now. It's only April and the show is in October. This gives us a chance to prepare our plans for then. This means that as early as now, we are going to be thinking about the combinations. We're going to be setting the plants in, making sure they're the right size, or at least they'll be the right size by the time October comes. Because right now, let's say this one, it might look tiny now, but in a few months it would be outgrowing the pot and it might look like this. That would be no good. So that's another thing you have to be mindful of. For the past few months, I've been spending a bit of time looking at different pots from different vendors, but I might have to search more because I'm thinking of bringing a whole lot of plants into the show. As for top dressing, I just have to call on Soilworks. That's where I get all of my landscaping and pebbles needs. Rockery. Yeah, anyway, I'm just going to tap on my Soilworks connection and look at their range of top dressing. You might want to do the same with your local landscaping and garden supply centers. Apart from that, I guess all we have to do is to look at the plants. I've got a few plants that I had in mind. I've been mentioning the Cante for a few episodes now, but I think it's time I show you the others. One more thing, I forgot to mention, I wrote this down here. Here's the typical criteria that they use over in the United States. And this might be something that we would adopt this time. The scale might vary, but these are the criteria, the categories more or less. So the first one is 70% for the condition of plant. As said, it has to be grown true to type. It has to be clean, healthy, and a degree of maturity. So I guess there's bonus points for more mature plants because it's degree of maturity and they're harder to get to that size, I guess. So I think I might have an advantage in that because lots of my plants are mature. And that's a huge bulk, man, 70%. The next 15% is for staging and presentation. The pot and top dressing are clean and appropriate to plant in size, color, and general appeal. So this is where you have to think about the entire package. 10% for degree of difficulty on cultivation. And this refers to how difficult is a plant to grow in your region or in a pot or in cultivation. I guess this has mainly to do with the type or variety of plant and the size that you got it to. So some plants are hard to get into a large size. 5% for nomenclature. This is the naming, the proper scientific name or common name used. So I have to make sure that the scientific name or common name in the label is spelled and used correctly. I don't think this is going to be much of a problem for me because, as you know, I'm very particular with the names. Finally, bonus points for in flower or rare in cultivation or special to show. So I guess if you're going to show varieties that very rarely flower or are flowering very, I don't know. As long as there's something special about them, then by all means, you might get bonus points for that. So anyway, there's a few plants that I want to use and let's go have a look around. You already know about my Cante, this one, and it is quite large. I don't think I've ever seen something this large in the garden centers that I've been to before, nor in the show. So yeah, this might be one of a kind. This one I've been thinking a lot about in the past few weeks because it's a pity that I've already planted it in, but this Lilachina, it's so hard to see them get to this size. So I'm going after the wow factor, the difficulty or degree in cultivation, because like the Cante, I've never seen them grow in that size in other people's collections, but then again, I haven't seen that much collections yet, so I may be biased, but I think this is special. I might have to pull this out at some point and replace with another plant. temporarily or maybe permanently. We'll see about that. I have a few Linochinas in here, much smaller as you can see, this too. So I might use this, just replace the large one I have in the garden with this, either one of these two, and just place the larger one in a pot for the show. Yeah. Something I would also like to show is this Benimusume. It is symmetrical, but it has a bit of pest damage, so I might have to prepare it for that, clean it up, give it some treatment, and hopefully by October it would have outgrown all of those damage and it would be looking better by then. So intensive care. I'm also thinking of bringing along this Echeveria bluebird. It has lots of leaves, it's looking very symmetrical, and it's very hard getting them to this size, so this might be another one of those special or hard to grow in cultivation. Yeah. I'm also thinking of bringing one of these Aeonium short blacks, and if you've been following my vlog, you will know that these are my all-time favorite plants, and I would be really proud to show them off. So I just need to find a suitable pot for them. Something that I've been thinking of doing for quite some time now is removing all of the agavoides from this cluster and use the pot for something else. So as you can see, the pot that I've used here, it's a heavy clay pot. It's very ornate. It has some designs on the outer cover, and I think I could pair this with some of the lighter shade of Echeverias, or I don't know. There's so much potential with these types of pots, and I've got two different sizes. This is the smaller one, and let me just pull up one of the larger pots. Here's the larger one, and I could use this maybe for my Kante. We'll see. I'm not 100% convinced on using that other pot for my Kante because I have this round bowl, and this might be better suited for the Kante. Let me just pull it up. Here they are side by side. And looking at it closely, I think the Kante would better fit this bowl because of the shape, and it's quite circular due to the large number of leaves. It is a very dense rosette. So size-wise, I think they're made for each other. This one rather than the deeper one. Let me just put them side by side. I think this one complements the size of the Kante more than this. So yeah, I'm happy with this pot. Another plant that I would like to showcase would be this Echeveria Orion. It is a dense rosette. It is a nice, it's slightly warm, slightly tending towards purple. Depends on the light, I guess. But I originally got this pot for this one, but I'm having second thoughts. I think it is too, too thick, too fat for the Orion. If you imagine it inside, the shape, I think I should, part of me thinks that I should probably get an egg-shaped pot rather than this one. Something like this might be suited for another type of plant, so I guess we'll see. Something I would like to show are cases like these where Echeverias are putting up pups up on their flower stalk, like this one. You could see my Mona Loa, it has this pup here, but unfortunately they do not stay that shape that long, especially once they get too heavy. So it's not something I can guarantee that I still have by then. I'm hoping some other plant would do this. But you could see how quirky this is. The main rosette is here. It has an offset. Here's the rosette of the offset, which has its own flower stalk. Now imagine if we have even more levels of these. That would be fun. Even just removing that flower stalk here, it helped this one pop up. but that's only going to buy me a few months or maybe a few weeks. I don't think this will last until October. Some of my other plants are doing the same thing, but they are leaning heavily to the side now, which means that they are not having the perfect shape, very nice shape. They are asymmetrical already. I don't think it will work for me. So let's see what we have closer to the date. But in this case, I'm going to be chopping this off now, because in case I decide to enter the main rosette, at least it would no longer be as deformed. Look at that beauty. There are so many plants that I want to take with me, but my plan is to bring a lot of Echeveria into the show because I feel that for the past few years they have been underrepresented. Because for the past few years that or at least in the shows that I've been to, most of the plants that I see are just cactus, and there's a whole lot of divisions for cacti compared to, say, Echeveria. And as a result, I'm so disappointed by the lack of Echeverias and other rosette-forming plants in the show. And I want to fix that. And to that end, I'm thinking of bringing a whole lot of plants just to represent the Echeveria genus and to show people what there are to see when it comes to Echeverias. And you know how passionate I am with my Echeverias. I've been posting a photo of one every single day, both on Instagram and Facebook. And I think that there's so many different varieties, so many different looks of Echeveria that people are not seeing. And I would really love to raise more awareness on this type of plants. And the motivation behind it is that I think if there are more of us Echeveria collectors that are coming out, then that would mean that the demand goes really high. But at the same time, this would encourage more hybridizers, more sellers of Echeveria to come out with more varieties, with more plants for sale basically. If we get more demand, then more supply would be coming out. I'm just playing a small part in it. There are many other Echeveria hybridizers out there who are more experienced than me. I'm just starting out with my seedlings, and I would really like seeing a lot more variety. So that is my dream for the near future. I'm not in it mainly just to win it. Of course, there's that aspect to it. I want to be recognized for my Echeveria collection, but at the same time, I like more people to be aware of the varieties, the range that Echeveria has to offer. And ultimately, it will serve the purpose of giving me more varieties to choose from, to buy from. It will make the world a better place, I guess, at least for us Echeveria collectors. I need your help with some ideas on plant and color combinations when it comes to pots. I'll be spending a few days during winter or in the upcoming weeks just looking around various pot and plant supply stores and see what sort of pots I can get to complement with my plants. So again, I'm thinking of them as a whole package, and yeah. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next episode. We'll be continuing planting, I hope. So I'll see you then. Bye. Cerriscapades is made possible with the support of my Patreon sponsors. Patreon allows you to support content creators like me with a small monthly donation. You can pledge your support by heading over to patreon.com/Cerriscapades. If you're in Australia, I've got some of my plants for sale. Check out my plant shop at cerriscapades.com/theplant shop with dashes.